Hi friends, welcome to digital design, whatever we're calling this class. This is a review of the core functions of Photoshop. You'll notice I've already done this whole assignment once, and that was because I recorded this video with no sound. Good job me. So I'm gonna do it again, just for fun, for practice, okay? Our first step is to set up a Photoshop file. So go ahead and open Photoshop and also open up your source files for this digital design class. So I've created this folder. I've got a folder for this project, and then I have my 3 folders inside: source files, project files, exported content. So I got all my source files over here, lots of delightful fancy stock images that I have pulled. So that is the prep. Once you get into Photoshop, once it opens on your machine, you're going to create a new file. There are a couple of different ways to get to what you're looking for this file. So we have some choices, right? You can do a custom file size. You can go to the Film and Video tab and select this HDTV 1080p file, which is the pixel space of most high definition projectors. So that is going to be 1920 pixels wide, 1080 pixels tall. Or you can go create your own custom one, right? So some of these are like random custom sizes that I've done before. I might come over here and make it in height and width 1920 and then height 1080, okay? And that should be pixels, not any of these other things, because we are looking at the size of the screen, the number of little dots, little squares on the screen. And then we're going to name it sunset to sunrise. Maybe we'll call it my last name so that we have that in the file name. And we say create. And now we have a blank piece of paper, but it's not paper, blank screen to work from. And it's this background layer. The first thing I'll do is just double click on this background layer. It's going to turn it into layer 0. So now it's just a white sheet. That may be something we use later, maybe not, we'll see. And then I'm going to bring in all of these files that I need, right? And I'm going to label them, rename them in Photoshop based on what they are, okay? So this is some clouds. Let's bring that in. I'm going to have to resize it, right? I want it to be nice and big, fill my screen. It's much bigger than my screen now, and I might pick, you know, a certain part of it. We'll see. Before I can add the next thing, I have to hit this check mark up here, or I can hit return, enter on my keyboard, but I'll hit the check mark this time. And then I'm going to rename this clouds, right? Great. Let's see. What other stuff do I want? That's kind of a nice sunrisey situation. Oh, the moon. Definitely need the moon. Moon. Great. I think I want to use this rooftop as my foreground element. So let's bring that in. Resize it, sort of fit the page. Which side do I like? I think I like that side. Great. Return. Call this rooftop. That's going to be my foreground element, so I'll type that in too. And, oh, that's a nice sky, like a night sky. This one's good too. Which one do I want? Let's use this one as my night sky. Again, resize, 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 make it nice and big. Like that sort of fuzzy edge. Double clicking in here, night sky. And then I think I want to use this image as my daytime sky reference because I like that gradient all the way off on the edge. And we'll use it as a reference, right, to get a gradient. We'll use a flat gradient as our actual sky. But I'm going to just kind of fill the image so I can reference like the bluest dark blue to the lightest blue and make a gradient. That'll be my flat sky, then I'll put my clouds in front of it. So that's going to be my daytime sky reference. Day, sky, ref. And then I need a sun of some kind. So there's that one, or this one. Let's use this one, and it's actually already called Sunset Color Ref, so I can just leave that name as is. Okay, so now I have a whole bunch of named files in here, okay? I want to start thinking through the stacking order of these layers, right? So skies are going to go all the way in the back. Clouds are going to come on top of things like the moon. The roof will be all the way in the very front. Let's put the sunset sky down here and the day sky down here, right? So this is sort of my order of things. Is I'm going to have a night sky, a day sky, a sun, right? I'll pull the sun out of this layer, a moon, clouds will be in front of those things probably, and then I have a rooftop foreground element. Okay, so those are all of my files. I'm also going to create a folder. We're going to drag it down here to the bottom, and we're going to call this reference files because I don't want to mess up all of my files as I build this piece. I want to keep them in case I need them later. So as I work on each layer, I'm actually going to put a copy of it in that reference files layer so that I'm not impacting or destroying the original image. For this one, I'm going to select my rooftop foreground element. I'm going to use Command A to select everything that I'm seeing right now. So that means there are parts of this image that are off to the side, that are below the screen, that are not going to be included when I copy and paste, and are not going to be included in my final image, and that's okay with me. So select all, Command C for copy, Command V for paste. Now it's called layer 1. I'm going to drop this rooftop foreground element down into that reference files because I don't need it anymore. And then this is the rooftop. And let's look at selections, okay? And we can look at masking, we can look at destructive editing, where you actually delete things, okay? So we're gonna start with selection, right? And I'm gonna just turn off everything else. I'm gonna change this layer from white to black by flipping with this double arrow the foreground and background colors, picking up this paint bucket and dumping it on layer 0. So now it's black. I'll be able to tell if I have an issue. Coming back up to my rooftop, I'm going to zoom in, and that's Command plus on our Mac. And we're going to start putting together a selection, okay? There are a couple of different ways to get a selection. Let's start here with the quick selection tool. So if you hold on this menu, you'll see there are a couple of different ones, right? There's this object selection tool, the quick selection tool, or the magic wand tool. We're going to start with the quick selection tool, right? And that will allow me, with this nice big cursor, to just select all of this sky business, right? Like, a lot of that is pretty good. It's gotten me sort of a rough collection of things. You'll see there are issues, right? Where it's lost part of the roof, or like there's a weird gap, blah, blah, blah. We're gonna come back in now and refine that selection, okay? Because I'm just trying to select all of the sky, and then I'm going to use destructive editing this time, where I just hit delete and make it go away, right? And then on the next one, we'll talk about like the moon, and we'll use a mask instead of destructive editing. But in this case, we're just going to use destructive editing. So before I get to that, I do want to zoom in and clean up this selection, right? So that I know I'm getting exactly the stuff I want the whole way around. And I'm going to need a much smaller cursor. So I use my open and close brackets on my keyboard to make things bigger and smaller. If you don't like that, you can come up here and you can change your size, right? But I like to do it visually so I can see my little cursor. And we are going to get nice and small because I want to add that little bit into the selection, right? Because I'm trying to select all of the sky bits. And then I'm actually going to switch to subtract from selection in order to get back a little bit more of that edge, right? So this tool is looking for edges, and so it's not going to give you exactly what you hover over. It's going to be close, but you do want to kind of refine that edge, try and make it look as nice as possible. And this is, you know, a couple pixels at a time, and it's sort of adding little bits and whatever, or you can come in with an even smaller cursor and kind of clean up your edges. So I'm going to carefully go through my whole edge and do this. I don't think you're going to be interested in watching me do this, so I will speed this up and be back. All right, I'm having an issue here, right, where I'm really trying to just get this square and it's not behaving for me. I'm going to switch to a different selection tool, okay? So this is the polygonal lasso tool, and it basically, if you have it in this mode, which is add to selection mode, it lets you just draw a little shape like this rectangle and add it to your selection directly. So it's no longer looking for edges the way that the previous one was. It's actually just letting me draw exactly what I want using these polygons. So sometimes that's the way, and if I want to subtract from selection, same idea, right? I can just do like that, right? And then I can add to selection the same way, right? So in some cases, that's just going to be the easier approach, right? Is to draw your exact thing that you want to add, and then come back in and continue along on your way, okay? So usually the quick selection tool is a good place to start, but sometimes if I'm trying to refine edges and stuff, I'll just draw things using this polygonal lasso tool. Okay, so now we've selected the whole edge all the way across. I've selected all of the sky parts that are the sky. If I zoom out, I can look at this as a whole, make sure I'm good, make sure I don't have any marching ants anywhere else that I don't want. And now I can do what would be a really quick destructive edit, which is I can hit the delete key and that whole sky will be gone. Poof, gone. Then I can use Command D to deselect, and I can take a look, sort of see how I like the way that this edge came out. I think it looks fine. There's a weird thing happening right here on the top, right? There's like a weird line on the top. And so I think I'll just come in with my eraser tool over here, make it a little bigger so I can see it, and erase the weird line that was left at the very top edge of that image. So now I have my foreground element, my beautiful rooftop. Perfect. Let's go ahead and turn that off, and I'm going to come back to the clouds. Let's look at the moon, because this is going to give us a good example of a, let's see, of a non-destructive edit, right? So what we just did was destructive editing. We deleted pixels. They're gone, right? In that original, the OG rooftop, they're gone. Now we're going to do a non-destructive edit on our moon, where we just select the moon, and then we use a mask to get rid of the black behind it, and we don't actually mess with the file, okay? So we're not changing any pixels, we're just changing the outline of it, the mask of it, okay? So this is going to use a different selection tool, and that is up here, and it probably looks like the rectangular marquee tool, right? Which when you start out, we'll just add marquees, Command D to deselect. Then you can come in here, switch it to the elliptical marquee tool. That's a circle selection tool, right? So it makes an ellipse, which is an oval. If you want it to be an exact circle, in this case I do, you hold Shift, right? And it will create an exact circle. If while you're drawing this circle of the moon, you need to move it around. So I'm holding Shift. If I let go of Shift, it starts going wonky. But I hold Shift, I got a nice even circle. If I want to move the placement of that circle around as I'm drawing this selection, I am clicking and holding with my mouse the whole time. I hit the space bar, and now I'm moving the shape around, moving it around, moving it around. I'm going to actually go a little smaller, still holding Shift to keep that nice and round. And refining this edge, okay? So now I'm able to kind of set this just inside the visual edge of the moon because I don't want a weird black ring around the moon. I want it to actually have like a clean edge, and if that means I lose a little bit, that's okay, all right? So now if I Command M and Command plus, I zoom in, I can see my little marching ants are all the way inside of those pixel edges, and that's going to be perfect for what we want to do. So now that I've done that, I'm going to just hit the mask button. And if you remember, that's all the way down here past FX. And it's this little picture of add, where if you hover over it, it says add layer mask, which you probably can't see that it might be a little bit outside of the vision of the screen. So now I have my moon. Look at him. He's beautiful. And it's just the moon and it's matted, okay? We're gonna do the same basic process to get a sun, right? So I kind of liked this sun, even though it has some birds, we'll erase those birds and it'll be great. Same process, right? So I'm gonna zoom in a little so I can see what I'm working with. I'm going to pick up my circle marquee tool, my oval, right? I'm gonna kind of draw it around. I'm gonna get into this like yellowy edge. I think that's good. Sure, right? Great, wonderful. So another way to get a non-destructive edit, right, without deleting this whole sky, because I might want to use some of these colors when I'm figuring out my sunset, is to just copy and paste what's inside this selection onto its own layer and call that the sun layer. So now that I've selected it, I can use Command C and then Command V. And I should have, oh, nope, I gotta be on the right layer. Gotta be on the sunset layer, sorry. Command C, Command V. Now I have a layer 0 that has appeared and it is just the sun, okay? This is great, I don't want the birds. I'm gonna come back to that. Let me call this sun, because that's what it is. And then I'm gonna come in and just kind of clean up these birds, make them go away. Another nice trick, if you're worried about messing up your edge, which I totally just did, is to select the whole layer before you go in, because that way you won't be able to accidentally, for example, draw out here, like this garbage I just added. If you select everything on the sun layer using the selection tool, right? So if I say, hey, I just want the sun, right? Now I can't accidentally pick up a paintbrush. I have a weird brush going on, but I can't accidentally pick up a paintbrush and color outside of that line. I don't want to color like that anyways, but that's a useful thing, right? And if you're using a paintbrush to pick up color, you can do the same process as I did with the clone stamp tool. I don't know why I use the clone stamp tool, it's just a habit. But you can like zoom in, right? Make your brush nice and small. Use the Option key as an eyedropper in this case to pick up that color, and then just color over the thing you don't want, which in that case was a weird bird, okay? So now I have a sun, great. Deselect that, turn it off, don't need it right now. Let's look at our night sky, see how we feel about it. I think it's fine. Let's go ahead and create our day sky gradient, okay? So I'm gonna use a rectangle with a gradient fill. You could probably just do the whole, like the whole surface if you wanted to, but I'm gonna just use a rectangle to create a new day sky that's just fading from the darkest blue to the lightest blue of this image. And I'll use that gradient underneath my clouds and my sunset colors, okay? So I'm gonna grab this rectangle and I'm gonna just draw it outside, okay? So nice big rectangle. It has a stroke, it has a fill. These things are available to you in this properties tab. I don't know what your side panel looks like, so if you're having trouble finding it, you let me know, I'll help you out. You can also see it when it's selected like this, when you've just drawn it. You can see all these properties in this top bar too, okay? So we're gonna go into fill. We're gonna go into gradient, right? There are default gradients available to you, right? Basics, right? Different color things happening with these different basic, right? foreground black and white, foreground to transparent, blah, 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 right? There are also other random blue variants. So if you don't have a reference image or you're lazy or whatever, you can find that down here too. We're just gonna start from a basic and then we're gonna edit it to make it look the way we want it to. One of the things I'm gonna do first is pull this up in front of it by dragging it up. Then I'm gonna come back in here, right? And I'm gonna play with this gradient map. So I click on this, and what opens up down here is this gradient editor. I think it'll also open up, yes, it'll also open up if you double click on the layer, and then you hit this gradient fill, you'll get the gradient editor as like a bigger, I just double clicked on that, you'll get it as like a bigger window too, okay? So what we're gonna do is create this gradient, right? The top bar is opacity, right? So this is solid the whole way across the gradient. The bottom bar is color. So let's start here. The dark end is the bottom edge. And this color right here, if I click on it, I have a color picker, so I can pick a random color in here, or I can use the eyedropper over here. So I'm gonna come all the way down into the corner of this mountain and pick up this nice light blue, because that is the very bottom edge of this gradient. You say okay, right? So now we have light blue going to white, and instead of white, I want it to be the darkest blue. So I can double click here. Again, it's like, oh, weird, it's a white that's from pink. We're gonna look, and you'll see as I click and drag around, I'm getting kind of twitchy, different, darker, lighter blues based on the cloud situation. So I'm gonna kind of eyeball where the darkest one is, something like that, okay? And I click okay. So now I have this gradient. There are some nice things you can play with in between, which are these little dots, right? So if I play with this dot, it's gonna change the proportion of one color or the other, right? I'm gonna leave it kind of in the middle. I am going to then grab this stop and kind of pull it down a little bit just to make a little bit more of that darkest blue at the top. And because I know my foreground element is kind of sitting a lot of the way up, I'm gonna bring this bottom edge kind of up a little bit too, okay? So that gives me my blank sky gradient. And I click okay, and I click okay. And now I have this lovely rectangle that is my day sky, okay? I didn't spell sky correctly, but that's fine. We're gonna do the same thing with the sunset color, except instead of starting from scratch, I'm just gonna take this day sky, I'm gonna duplicate it. So I'm gonna right click on it and find this duplicate layer, click on that, day sky copy. This is gonna be sunset sky. Cool, 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 right? Let's put sunset sky up on top and turn back on this sunset. And we're gonna double click on the rectangle and on the gradient. And I'm just gonna change this bottom edge color to something over here, right? Something nice and orangey. See how I got that nice sunset-y gradient now? You can pick anything off of your colors. I kind of want to go a little more pink maybe. And then I can also change its intensity. So like if I want it to be kind of a lighter color, I can just drag to the left on the color picker to give me the kind of intensity of sunset that I'm looking for. Okay. 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 Right? So now I have a sunset thing, I have a moon, a sun, a day thing, a day sky, and a night sky underneath all of that, okay? I'm gonna pull these two reference files I no longer need into my reference files folder, right? I don't need those sunset color references anymore because I'm getting close to having all of my layers assembled. This next section is optional, so if you would rather not do it, you can skip to the end to the next tab. Got some clouds. Let's hide everybody else and sort of tweak the clouds thing. Let me find a part of it that I like. To move this layer around, I use Command T, that turns on this transform tool, or I hit V to get my cursor back. Now I can kind of see what part of this sky feels good. And I actually kind of like this inside part, so if I use Command T to turn on the transform handles, I can kind of zoom in and be like, I feel like some nice clouds, right? If I wanted to, I could also scale it down, right? Maybe I want the clouds to move a little bit, so maybe I would want something wider. This is a case where that file being a linked file is super helpful. So maybe this is a time when I double click on the file, it opens up the actual object and I edit this version, and then I come back and look at it in my other composite, okay? So I'm gonna just come in here. Here we go, let's play our game. So I'd like to select, and I'm trying to select all of the blue of the sky and isolate the clouds in front of it. And the way I'm gonna do it in this case is I'm gonna use a color range selection, okay? So this, ooh, there's a sky? How does that work? Does it know how? I'm gonna click that. No, doesn't know how. It just selected everything. Never mind. Seems like it has a nice little game to play. So I'm picking color range, right? And like you'll notice in this image that it'll kind of pick up a variety of stuff, right? So if I want to get this kind of light blue, which I do, but not quite that much of it, my selection is white, right? So I'm gonna start kind of down here and pick up a lot of this blue. Then I'm gonna change to the eyedropper plus, and I'm gonna just kind of pick up the darker blue also. That's kind of okay. Yeah, we're gonna save this as, and then we'll update the smart object. Save on my computer. This will be going again right with my other files in digital design, sunset to sunrise. Let's put it in project files, and this is edited clouds. Okay, okay, great. Now I come back over here and I right click on this. No, this layer's not happy. There we go, right click on that, and I want to relink to file. That should open this up, and I can choose my new project file and place, and now I got that instead. So what you're gonna see, right, is that I have this kind of nice, interesting cloud thing happening when it's on top of another layer, right? I'm getting a little of the blending that I'd want. I would actually probably adjust that mask even a little bit more so that I get more blending around the edges of the clouds. This is something I can continue to refine, or I can use different blend modes, right, to achieve different looks, depending on what we're going for, okay? And you can play with this as well with your clouds, or you can not play with this. It's not a huge deal. But now at least I have some clouds. I can move around this image to get what I want out of it, right? I can make it bigger. And it scales nicely for me. I can come back in and edit it some more. So like if I want to actually get rid of some more of this mask, I can edit this mask within the thing, right? So I can be like, actually, I want more of that to go away, right? Click OK. Let's come back and look at it now. So now when I Command S to save this file, it will update in my other file, right? So this should update. Let's see what happens. Yeah, hasn't really changed, huh? More tweaking. I'll do this on my own time. I don't need to waste your time with my adventure in file editing, right? But as I make changes over here, they come through over here, okay? And you're gonna see various different levels of transparency over different parts of the document, some weird stuff happening on the edges, you know, stuff that you can play with later as you continue to sort of develop your masks. It might be that we really just want the white and not any of this blue. We can play with that too, okay? So that should be all the file prep I need to do, because I got all my different kinds of skies, right? I can turn them off individually. I can get different stuff out of different ones, right? I got my moon, it's under my clouds. I got my sun, it's also under my clouds. So because of the blue in that, I would probably want to change that layer so that it doesn't have that blue. Maybe that's the move, right? So if I take this layer and I just pop a black and white filter over it, so I've moved it now, and I just come in here and I say, hey, black and white that thing, right? Let's see what that does for me, right? So now, oh, I have to save. Save. Now because it's linked, I have this sort of hazy black and white thing happening instead of all of that color shift happening. It's still too much gray, and I would want to get rid of some of that gray, but that's another way to sort of flatten out some of the weird color stuff that's going on. Yeah. So these are now all assembled, right? I've got all the parts and pieces I could possibly want to do my animation. So once you have this kind of a file set up, go ahead and save it, like I have done, Command S, into that project files folder. And then I'd like you to, just for fun, go ahead and upload the Photoshop file to Schoology for me to this week's assignment. And then once you've done that, you can move forward into the After Effects portion of this project, okay? As always, let me know if you have questions. I'll try and help you through. And hopefully some of these things are things you've done before and vaguely remember. Okay, friends? Thanks so much. And I'll be back soon with some After Effects.